Hello, I'm Felicia, and I am currently documenting a difficult healthcare journey I've had through the NHS, living with chronic pain for 12 years and being unable to get a diagnosis or a resolution to my condition. This particular video documents my experience at NHS Fife, where I experienced discrimination, and an incident occurred that has had a long-lasting impact both on my medical journey and on me personally. I'm hoping to raise awareness about the dangers of discrimination in healthcare to prevent this from happening to other vulnerable people like myself. In October 2019, I fell into a mental health crisis. This was a result of living with chronic pain, undiagnosed chronic pain, at that point for 6 years, worsening pain, coupled with being knocked back by trust after trust after trust. And it was at this point that GP referrals were beginning to be refused by NHS trusts, and the combination of all three threw me into crisis. Whilst in crisis, I made a naive and foolish decision. I thought that if I crossed the border and moved to Scotland, that I may get a better hearing from head and neck surgeons in Scotland. So I left a community in Hebden Bridge where I've been living for 16 years and moved up to Scotland in January 2020. I arrived in Fife in crisis, and the mental health team offered me a voluntary admission to Whitelands Bray psychiatric ward for 2 weeks of respite, which I accepted. When I returned to the community, I had a CPN. I had no psychiatrist, a CPN who phoned me weekly to help me deal with my distress around these medical appointments and to give me the confidence to go further with further referrals. My GP in Fife kindly referred me to a head and neck surgeon at the ENT department at the Victoria Hospital in Kirkcaldy. I was seen in November 2020 by this surgeon, who agreed to do an MRI scan of my parotid gland and said he would refer me to tertiary services at NHS Lothian, who are more specialised in this kind of pathology. I had the scan and returned to see this surgeon in January 2021 and discovered a cruel twist of fate. This surgeon told me that he had a letter from my psychiatrist. I didn't have a psychiatrist. He told me that the letter said that my facial pain is all fictionalisation. I asked him who this psychiatrist was, and I'd never heard of him. It transpires that a psychiatrist in Fife, who had never met me, never spoken to me, I didn't know who he was, had gone into my records and written a letter saying that I have factitious disorder and that my facial pain is made up to feed the need to have a sick role. He shared this letter with many professionals and sent it to multi-agencies across the Fife area. This letter formed the basis of denial of healthcare. I was denied appointments for my facial pain, and it also formed the basis of obscene bias and stigmatisation against me. The surgeon did refer me to NHS Lothian because the MRI scan showed an abnormal masseter muscle on my left side. It was enlarged. But unfortunately, he included this psychiatrist letter with his referral. What transpired at NHS Lothian was very, very frightening, and I'll be documenting that in a separate interview. But Fife Pain Management refused a referral from NHS Lothian. They refused to see me despite my ongoing pain. And infectious diseases, who found abnormal infection markers in 2 consecutive blood tests, took no action and discharged me despite ongoing physical pain. They both left me with no care or no treatment options. The Equality and Human Rights Commission have confirmed that this letter is potentially a breach of 2 of my human rights. It's potentially a breach of Article 8 of the Human Rights Act, which is the protection of your right to privacy. And this encompasses the protection of one's personal and psychological integrity. They also thought it was a breach of Article 14, the protection from discrimination. You know, how could a psychiatrist who have never met me write such a serious letter without consulting me first? Other professionals were ignoring these, not just the human rights, but were ignoring medical evidence that there was something wrong, and listening to a baseless judgment written by someone who had never met me, and forming judgments about me which led to them denying seeing me. You know, I can't really relay accurately in words how this letter has affected me, and how terrifying it is to have a letter like that on one's records. When discrimination becomes systemic, it feels like the walls are closing in and there is nowhere to turn. You know, I felt dehumanised, I felt rejected by NHS Fife and NHS Lothian, but I also felt incredibly frightened. The level of shock I experienced when this consultant told me about this letter is shock I've never experienced before. It was like an earthquake within me. My world changed. It was an attack, and it worsened my crisis. I can't really relay the impact this has had, and the confusion about why someone would do this, and the lack of laws in place. That there are no laws that say a psychiatrist can't diagnose you without meeting you. The closest is the Goldwater rule in America, which is observed by psychiatrists, but that's for public figures. They're not allowed to make judgments without meeting someone, but there's nothing in the UK. You know, I want to see systemic change, and I want accountability from NHS Fife and other institutions. You know, we need proper training. Good medical practice saying don't discriminate against patients isn't enough. We need stigma awareness training in every single hospital and GP practice. We need proper communication, and we need the removal of stigmatisation in healthcare. Discrimination and misdiagnosis are very, very dangerous, and they lead, as in my case, to denial of healthcare for physical conditions that need intervention and treatment. We need proper protection from these issues for vulnerable individuals like myself. So please, if you see this video, please retweet it, share it, add hashtags to try and raise awareness about the dangers of discrimination in healthcare. At the end of this video, there will be a tribute following and a thank you to all of the organisations who supported me through this vicious attack on my integrity. I would profoundly like to thank every single organisation that comes up at the end of this video for your support during 2 of the cruelest years of my life. I truly would not have made it through this without your help and support. I had to withdraw from mental health services after this letter because of the dangers of being exposed to a psychiatrist who was writing these kind of letters about me. And I was blessed to find non-statutory organisations in the community who held my hand through this and helped me deal not just with the shock of what this man had done, but of the discrimination that ensued after this letter was published. I truly, truly thank each and every one of you profoundly for your support during this very, very difficult time. Thank you.